talking Memphis wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Live as live can be. The opening was cut off a little bit, but yellow again. Every freaking body. It's Randy Hales Live. We're live for Talking Memphis Wrestling. PJ is in the house. Alexander in the house. Brooks in the house. So is Calvin. So is Thomas. So is Greg White. The crew is coming on. Thanks for dropping in and come on in and join episode 19 of season 2025 for this show, which is Talking Memphis Wrestling. BC Collins is in the house. So is Randy Dandy, Randy West. And I'll tell you in a minute who's going to join me, but right now I will tell you who is not going to join me. The original members of the panel for Talking Memphis Wrestling. Michael St. John has a business meeting that he is in right now, as a matter of fact. Pat Trammell is in a family dinner as it's his daughter leaving to go on a trip tomorrow, so he's doing a family dinner. And Coach Chris Ellis is on a plane going to Montana for some kind of thing. I don't know what's going on. Alexander says Memphis Wrestling 1992 looks better than modern day wrestling. I mean, 92 wasn't a real good box office year, not a real good year overall creatively, and 2025 is the most profitable year so far in the history of the wrestling business. So we have different views on that. Thomas, yellow again, everybody. What's going on with you? We might not have the originals, but the newest guest that we have helping us out a lot, the host of his own podcast, the Blues Doctor podcast, you can check out on YouTube. It's supposed to hit tonight at midnight. Check it out then, or wait till in the morning, and it'll pretty much for sure be up. Frank Seaton, what is going on? As there's Rusty, my man. Thanks for once again making the save, making the hot tag, saving the day. How are you and Beth doing? Producer Beth and Dr. Robinson. I want to know how Mrs. Robinson is, and in a row as producer. I want to know Mrs. Robinson, how she doing, and producer Robinson, how she's doing. And you, how you're doing.
Thank you, Randy. You know, we're doing good. We went down to the wire this time on the podcast episode. We just got it up this afternoon. So I'm, keeping my fingers crossed that it will go out at midnight tonight. So we were busy. We went to New Orleans over the weekend. We had a lot of stuff to do there. So we didn't have as much time to work on it as we have had in the past. So we went, as I said, right up to the wire to get it finished.
Now, Adam Dunn and Pat, and maybe not Michael, but a lot of people might say, as the creator of this show and the senior host of this show, all that stuff, I can be temperamental at times. Now, I've met Beth. I've met your producer. I've met your wife. Same person, by the way. He doesn't keep that a secret at all. Are you mean to her, or are you nice to her? I know you're a nice husband, a great husband, a wonderful husband, a supportive husband. I know you're also probably a doctor, and you're probably pretty damn good at that too. But as your producer, are you temperamental?
Not really. I mean, I'm a beginner at this stuff, so I don't feel like it's my role to be, a critic. She critiques me.
I was fixing to say that. I can see that. She's not shy at all, is she?
Right. So I don't mind.
She can get you in line for sure, right?
That's absolutely right.
Adam keeps me in line. Adam keeps me in line. He cuts me off all the time. Then sometimes when I hit something, it makes him mad, but that's okay. Yeah, I could say it says the Randy Hill Show, but this show is not the Randy Hill Show. This is Talking Memphis Wrestling. Richard is saying hello to you. BC said hello to you. You've been a welcome addition to this show, and everybody appreciates you, Rusty, very much.
Thank you so much. Coming from beautiful Orange Beach, Alabama, we're glad to be here tonight.
I love your view. I love seeing that. It's all great. We're going to get into wrestling, our new segment, the photos of the day and the cards of the day. We'll get to that in a little bit. But this show, because it's a live broadcast, I think it's good all the time to always, always keep us up with the news of the day and is especially stuff that's going on in the sports world and the entertainment world. There was some news, believe it or not, Rusty. One of them goes way back, maybe to the 20s. Shoeless Joe Jackson. Remember the White Sox scandal back in the day? And everybody, certainly younger than that, can remember Pete Rose. Commissioner Rob Manfield that says any lifetime ban ends at death. Well, Shoeless Joe's been dead for 80 years. Pete Rose died in September, and they are now eligible to put in the voting for the Hall of Fame. Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose. Your comments about that?
Wow, I didn't know that until you told me just a minute ago. And I'm surprised. Actually, I'm a little more surprised at Pete Rose than I am at Shoeless Joe. I think most of the historical accounts suggest that Shoeless Joe was not involved directly in the White Sox scandal, but just kind of got caught up in it. In contrast, Pete Rose definitely bet on baseball, and there was no question about it. He even admitted it. So I thought his ban was going to be, lifelong for all of us. So I'm surprised. I'm not disappointed. I kind of think they should be in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose is definitely, one of the greatest players of all time. I think it was Sparky Anderson, the manager for the Reds, and then
Yes.
Detroit and somewhere else, who said, if you give me 9 Pete Roses, I can beat any other team any day. That's how much he thought of Pete Rose.
And they did beat everybody every day. Just absolutely fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. Another news that just broke today from the NBA front, and there's always debate saying who the GOAT is, the greatest of all time, and always, and by the way, Bo James says Shoeless Joe was on the 1919 White Sox team. He was banned in 1920. So, folks, that's been a long time ago. Let's talk NBA news right now, and let's talk the person that so many people says is the greatest of all times, and that's Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, certainly one of the all-time greats, and been retired a long time, and has more money than he knows what to do with it. In the 25-26 NBC NBA coverage, Michael Jordan will serve as a special contributor with NBC for their 25-26 NBA coverage. So that's big news. And for somebody that don't need any money, how many millions, multiple million of dollars do you think he'll get for doing this gig?
Oh, geez. I was surprised at this one too, because I felt like NBC wouldn't be willing to put up that much money for Michael Jordan. But maybe he reduced his price because he just wanted to be on. Like you said, he doesn't have any need for money at this point in his life. So maybe he just came to NBC and said, listen, I'll do it for some relatively low price, just because I want to be on the air again. Who knows?
Very interesting. I can't wait to watch the 25, 26, and I'll try to catch up some games to see hello, Ricky Kennedy, when I see somebody making a big change in careers. I, I think I think that is very, very interesting. We're going to take it down a notch, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the time that comes up from time to time. That's always certainly sad, but professional wrestling had a death. And I think everybody that watches this show keeps up with professional wrestling. And we have a graphic for that, certainly, that we can show the graphic for Sabu. Sabu, real name Terry Runk. He was born on December the 12th, 1964. Died just a couple of days ago on May the 11th at 60 years old. He did an independent show, in WrestleMania in Las Vegas, independent show, and he wrestled somebody. Maybe Joey Janela. I'm not exactly sure who he wrestled. He has not been in good health, and he passed away. Of course, Terry Bronk, or Sabu, also Sabu known as Samu when he was in the Memphis Wrestling territory. He is the nephew of one of the greatest, if not the greatest, heel of all time. We have a couple of pictures, and this is a older picture of Sabu in the background, and this is our older Ed Frott, the original Cheek, the feared heel, 1926 to 2003. He died away from a heart attack at 19 he died in 2003 at 76 years old. The legendary Sheik, and I think we have one more picture. A younger Sheik that's a scary son of a gun. I saw him live at the Mid South Coliseum several times. We'll talk more in just a minute about Sabu, and we have some great USWA video coming up in just a minute. But Rusty, you went to a lot of Mid South Coliseum shows. There wasn't a ton of Chic appearances, but
No.
there was some, and especially in 1974. Did you ever see the Chic in action? And man, he's a scary dude.
Oh, he was, absolutely. And I did see him in 74. I can't remember whether I ever saw him again after that, but I remember that one. And well, first off, regarding Sabu, it's always a little scary when somebody younger than you dies, and Sabu was younger than me at this point. So that's a little unnerving. But
He's younger than me
Sabu,
too, by the way. Younger
yeah.
than Michael, older than Adam, older or certainly younger than you, younger than me, younger than Michael, older than Pat by a couple of years, and older than Chris Ellis. And our prayers go out to that family, and of course the ECW faithful. So just a sad situation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ironically, I perhaps know more about the Sheik, the original Sheik, than I do about Sabu. I was not a big fan of ECW or Sabu back in the day when they were hot, but I've generally kept up with his career, and I know how important he was to the ECW promotion. So I've always been fascinated by that. He was willing to do anything almost. He put his body at risk for the promotion. It showed. He had scars all over his body. So it's sad, and R.I.P. Sabu.
ECW created a lot of talent, but it seems like almost every one of them, except for maybe Taz and Tommy Dreamer and the Dudleys, and those are all great talent, but so many started their wrestling career in Memphis, and I want to show video from the TV5 studios with Dave Brown and Michael St. John on the call, and I want to get you the date on this sucker, if I can. I think it's. I did not put a date on here. I think it's. Um, Michael or Adam may be able to help me. 91 or 92, something uh, like that, and I do not have the date on here. But this is Samu, who later became Sabu, against Rob Van Dam,
Wow.
and he was called his real name Rob Zakowski. This is a 7 minute 35 seconds, and this is a transformation, Rusty. And they didn't go back to this too quick. And Adam, just as producer notes, we'll watch to the end of the match, then stop it. Rusty and I will comment, then we'll start it back up. Then they show a match from the live event that involving Fuller and Jarrett against Judge Dredd and Sabu, and we want to get that in now. This is a tribute, and I think we have a caption about Sabu. Let's put on the screen right now, as we certainly rest in peace, and we certainly wish his family and everybody nothing but prayers and the best. He passed away on May 11th at 60 years old. And now we go to the video of a young RVD against the young Sabu. And then after the match, we'll dissect this. So watch careful, everybody. Watch careful.
Mystery man in the ring. Rob Zakowski trotting around the ring right now. And he is going to be headed up onto the ring apron. Look at him leap into the ring. We're just about set to go with one fall, 10-minute time limit action. I beg your pardon, one fall, 15-minute time limit action. And here's Michael St. John.
Thanks, Dave. And it is Samu the Mystery Man. There you see him acting very peculiar in the ring to start things off against Rob Zakowski. Rob has made a sensational debut here in the USWA, but he is getting quite a test today with Samu the Mystery Man.
Rob
Van Dam.
Very unorthodox in the way he approaches a wrestling match. And, of course, Rob Zakowski with that kickboxing
Michael St. John.
and the martial arts training that he has. This should be a very interesting match. Zakowski with a little kick to the head. Samu, looking at the lights, it looks like he is going over towards the referee to ask him about it. But in the meantime, Rob Zakowski goes towards him, and Samu, the Mystery Man, right away seizes the opportunity on Rob. Puts him into the ropes, sends him off. Oh, what a nice drop kick. Rob Zakowski catches him with a good drop kick. Takes with the arm twist a step over. Look at this roll. Brings him down to the mat. Looks like they have had him in a pinning combination, but Samu with the ropes quickly to the floor.
Certainly wasn't.
So that stopped the count right there. This Samu, he keeps pointing at the light grid. He's been here before, but I think he understands wrestling, but I'm not sure he really understands what's going on as far as the television station is concerned. And I don't know if he's afraid that there's something strange up there that's going to come get him or what, but look at that.
What a nice move, as again Zakowski up high with the drop kick, catching Samu upper part of the chest, arm drag takedowns. Samu goes down.
Now you see this style a lot in modern wrestling. Back in 91 and 92,
Yeah.
you just didn't see it.
Unheard of.
Count of one was all he got. And very quickly, Samu up and looked like he
Back in the day,
wrestlers
that
I think he did. That
did this would get
Zakowski
fired.
down there. Rob, tremendous speed and agility. Look at that. You never know where he's going to be next. Great move there as he took Samu off his feet. That's something he needed to do.
I don't think I've seen two wrestlers go at each other any quicker as far as the pace of this match as these two have gone at each other thus far in this match. Samu, second strand of rope, drops down with the knee across the throat of Rob Zakowski and moves in. Got him choked. Referee Paul Neighbors breaking it up very quickly. And Samu with a front chancery now. And Rob Zakowski slowed down a bit. Samu, I think, wanting to get the pace of this match down to his speed.
Yeah, I think if he can slow it down, he feels like he would have the advantage there, and that's what he's done to Zakowski. He's got him down. Oh, he only got a count of one.
Rolled him over, and now reverses it again with that front face lock. Samu, the Mystery Man, and I guess that really applies, Dave, because he's a very mysterious individual in the ring.
Zakowski trying to speed things up a little bit.
This is from, Rusty, this is from July the 6th, 1991.
Again. Samu and Zakowski locked up in the center of the ring.
Yeah, I have not seen this one before.
Uppercut that time.
You know, I hadn't either, but Adam found it.
Here's Zakowski going for the backslide, has him rolled up, but he rolled on over. Was unable to hold Samu for any kind of count. It looks like Samu has picked up some of the American style of brawling, if you would, throwing those fists. Look at this. Zakowski with several kicks, now one to the chest. Samu goes down. Zakowski rolls him up. 1, 2. Oh, I thought he may have had a 3 count.
I did too. Samu was able to bring those shoulders up, stop the referee's count, and get back to his feet. And now he sends Zakowski flying into the turnbuckles.
Caught him with the elbow once he was there. Zakowski again.
BC, the comments
around the ring, and there, Samu closing in and
on this match.
Out of the way.
Good smart move by Rob Zakowski there.
Zakowski going to climb the upper way. Here's Judge Dredd.
Somebody commented how small Rob Van Dam was in this one. He definitely got heavier over time.
Samu using the bottom rope for leverage, got a 3 count. And Samu, with a lot of help from Judge Dredd, just beat Rob Zakowski.
That's one of the oldest finishes in the book. Real simple, real easy to understand. Foot on the ropes. 1, 2, 3. And the heel gets the win. I like his gimmick where he didn't really understand the TV station. And, you know, seen that before, and let's come out of that, stop that, and we'll come back to it in just a second, Adam. And we do not see that interview with Rob Van Dam that clicks, and we'll see that. But your comments to let you dissect what you see, of not just to see. Did you had never seen this before? So what did you think? No. And did you see how this was worlds of different than a typical Memphis Wrestling TV match?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you mentioned before that this was, or the pace of this match was way different from a regular Memphis match, and at least in those days. And it's more akin to the pace of a match in modern times, I guess. In other words, you'll see that kind of a match, you know, regularly on TV, on AEW. So it's really fascinating. They were ahead of their time. You know, and I noticed, as somebody said, Rob Van Dam got bigger over time. I don't know how old he was in that piece, but you would guess he was probably 20 odd, you know, not that old.
He was young.
Oh, excuse me.
You might need a glass of Greek.
I do.
Take a shot, man.
Oh, let me get something.
Okay. I got my Sonic water right here.
And I did like that gimmick that Sabu did of not knowing where he was or not understanding where he was. And Dave Brown played it up very well so that everybody watching TV got it also.
No doubt about it. And we're going to go to part 2 of this, and it leads to a match at the live event, and we'll pick it up where we left it off.
We saw which occurred this past week. In this one, Jeff Jarrett and Robert Fuller were there with Judge Dredd and Samu. And let's pay particular attention to the way Jeff and Robert.
Now, Samu and Sabu are the same people.
The Tennessee stud Robert Fuller, the Golden Boy, Jeff Jarrett, USWA World Tag Team Champion, taking on Sabu.
I don't know who this announcer is. I don't think it's Michael. This is from July 24th, 1991.
Sabu got Judge Dredd with a handful of powder, and the Golden Boy in with a full.
I assume that's at the Coliseum, isn't it?
You know, at one time in 92, they ran the Pipkin building, but I think this is the Coliseum, and the announcers either David Webb or Roger Webb or David Webb. Roger Webb or David, what was David's last name? So Adam is saying this is not the Coliseum, so okay. This would have to be the Pipkin building on the fairgrounds.
You just can't see the fans because it's too dark.
Then it has to be the Pipkin building.
Sabu fires Jarrett in. fire Sabu across the ring. Off the turnbuckle for momentum. Look out.
The smaller venue, but it was a loud crowd, and there you see Jeff Jarrett about 6 years into his career. And Jeff, I heard on his podcast, My World, they did a great talk on Sabu and just a great podcast today on My World. But Jeff is coming up on his 40th year
Wow.
in the wrestling business.
He still looks young.
Trying to get back up into the ring. They fire off on him.
I wasn't at the Pipkin building for very long. Alexander says from March to July of 1991.
Yeah, at that point, I was in Los Angeles doing my fellowship at USC, so we couldn't get Memphis Wrestling out there.
Not at all. And there is the 1, 2, 3, and we'll come out and we'll wrap up that video, Rob Van Dam, and we had some just real good footage. I enjoyed that, Rusty.
Yeah, that was great. You know, as I said, I didn't see that before because I was all the way out on the West Coast at that time. So that was interesting to see that. I had not seen the Pipkin building either, I guess, before this. So I was surprised to see that. And it was a very loud crowd. You could hear it over the broadcast, how into it they were. So that all of those things were new to me.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it big time. I really did. Talk to Memphis Wrestling. Man, we're just about 27 minutes into the show, and we've talked Pete Rose, we've talked Shoeless Joe, we've talked Michael Jordan, we've talked to Sabu, we've had great video as we talk Memphis Wrestling. We talk Memphis Wrestling, we watch Memphis Wrestling, and we cover all things Memphis Wrestling, and we bonus covers the world of professional wrestling. We're going to jump around, Bo James, on our featured cards of the week. Enjoyed doing that, and we're going to kind of jump. We'll do Memphis, but we're going to jump promoters, and we're going to jump different territories. We are going to start with the first card that I posted, and it's card number 3890, Adam, 3890. This is Knoxville, Tennessee, at the Civic Coliseum in April of 1975. The British Butcher in the opening match with Steve Kovac, who actually had a short run in 1975 in Memphis and even wrestled Jack Briscoe for the NWA World title match. The next match on the night were for the Tennessee Tag Team Championship. This is interesting. This is a little connection with the Tennessee territory or the Goulas territory. It was Ron and Don Bass with Sam Bass against the team of Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto. Next match, very interesting. Jerry Briscoe against Robert Fuller, followed by a Southern Tag Team Championship. The Southern Tag Team Champions, George Barnes and Bill Dundee, against the tag team of Les Thatcher and Jimmy Golden. Then Ron Wright against the Mongolian Stomper with the next match, and the main event of the night in 1975 in April for the NWA World title match, Jack Briscoe defending against Ron Fuller, and this is from Knoxville, Tennessee in 1975. As we're switching up a little bit, and I think it's interesting to do, especially when there's Jarrett talent, and we have not only do we have Jarrett talent, we have Jarrett himself on that card for the Tennessee Tag Team Championship. This was interesting to me early in Ron Fuller's run as promoter in Knoxville. Rusty, what's your thoughts?
Oh, that's such a great card. You know, this was a time when the NWA champion was truly a traveling champion, and he went all over the country, in fact, all over the world. I remember seeing Jack Briscoe in Memphis at least once. I'm pretty sure against Lawler.
Against
Um,
Lawler, against Kovacs, and against Ron Fuller was the three opponents that he had in Memphis.
oh yeah, I believe that. And Jack Briscoe was such a great, just primary wrestler. He had been an amateur wrestler before he turned pro, and you could see it when he was wrestling. You knew he was the real thing. So I was a big fan of Jack Briscoe at the time. The other thing I noticed interesting about that card, you mentioned, um, yeah, Jarrett and Tojo, Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto against Ron and Don Bass. I had not realized, I guess, that Ron and Don Bass worked with Sam Bass. I mean, obviously it makes sense in retrospect, but I always knew Sam Bass as Lawler's manager, and I didn't realize he had done that same thing with Ron and Don Bass. So I guess that preceded him being Lawler's manager.
Well, actually, it did not, because Lawler is not on this card, but Sam was Lawler's manager starting in at the end of 1972. This was 1974, and maybe in '74, Lawler switched shortly as a babyface, and Ron and Don Bass was managed by Sam, so it might have been in that area, but Lawler had no desire to go to Knoxville, Tennessee to make that. And Ron and Don and my buddy Bo James says Ron was booking Memphis guys on Friday and Sunday in his territory there. Friday was a spot show for us, and most of the time Sunday was off. But that's a very good thing. You know how I bring this into music as we lose that font right now as a very interesting card for sure. Do you know the song Georgia on My Mind?
Oh, sure.
Georgia.
Many
Sweet.
people have done it. Ray Charles did it. I forget who did it originally, but Willie Nelson did a version of it, among many others. Great song.
Right now, you know what, Rusty? I have Georgia on my mind because we're going to our next card right now. This will be card number 3931. Some Memphis talent as well. As you see the pictures on that card, this is a Fred Ward promotion. This is in Columbus, Georgia. Columbus, Georgia, at the Municipal Auditorium, at the 5,000 seat Municipal Auditorium. Professor Tanaka in, well, no, we'll just start with the opening match. Let's start with the opening match. The opening match with Dennis Hall, which was a Tennessee talent, against Tommy Gilbert. This was in 1975. The second match was former Fabulous Kangaroo Don Kent against future legendary Larry Zbyszko. Don
Wow.
Kent and Larry Zbyszko. Lorenzo Parente, a Memphis guy, against Jerry Briscoe. The Outlaws, Memphis talent, against Ken Dillinger and Cowboy Parker, against Bob Armstrong and Robert Fuller. This was from Columbus in 1975. Possible Jerry Jarrett and Bo, if you could let me know, what year did Jerry Jarrett book Georgia? Outlaws against Armstrong and Fuller, then Abdul the Butcher against Chris Taylor, and Professor Tanaka in the main event against Johnny Walker. A 1 minute escape match. I don't understand that stipulation, but your thoughts on this card, Rusty, from Columbus, Georgia?
Oh, another great card. Now, Fred Ward was the promoter who worked within the Georgia Championship Wrestling area, I believe. He took some of the spot shows that they did, like in Columbus and maybe some other places too.
Now, Columbus, and I think he did make them too, they were regular towns, and he, I believe, had his own uh, his own television for
That
sure.
could be. Yeah. I don't know for sure. I've heard the name, but I never saw them on TV, but it's a great card. You can tell the Memphis influence on the card with all those guys. And I had a question for you. So Memphis or Mr. Wrestling, was that Mr. Wrestling #1, which I believe that was Johnny Walker, right?
Yeah, the main event was Mr. Wrestling #2 against Professor Tanaka. That was Johnny Walker. Mr. Wrestling #1 was Tim Woods.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Those were Memphis Wrestling. Ben, how you doing today? And I appreciate everybody watching, talking Memphis Wrestling tonight. We appreciate it very much. And that was interesting to take a look at that card, and we'll go to a card that was the end of the era. End of the era. This was Memphis, Tennessee, the Mid-South Coliseum from May the 9th, 1977, 39-32. This is Nick Goulas's last card at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. And Bo, real quick, I'll piggyback. Columbus and Macon were weekly towns for decades, had his own territory, booked his own, paid Atlanta a booking fee. So thank you for that, Bo. And we'll go to Nick Goulas's card. It's interesting, one of the people that in the 70s drew more money than anybody, or just as much as anybody, certainly, Tojo Yamamoto, Tojo Yamamoto and Dr. X was opening match, and then Pistol Pez Watley and Hank James, who I don't know, against John and Rick Davison, who I never saw as well. Then two Detroit talents, Don Kent and Ed George, against Joe Sky and Bull Burhead Jones, and the main event was for the Central States title, which didn't have any affiliation in Memphis. They just threw a title at stake. The Russian Stomper against the fabulous Jackie Fargo. Hold on for this, and we'll get our reaction as we'll come off that card right now. Come out of that, Adam, with Rusty and I on here. This card drew at the Mid-South Coliseum, 11,700 people building, and it drew 464.
Wow.
Your thoughts
I
on
knew,
that card? And it was done without TV.
I knew it was bad, or in other words, that they had not drawn that many people, but I didn't realize it was that bad. The irony, several ironies in that, one of which was Jackie Fargo and Tojo had not gone with Jerry Jarrett when he split off. They stayed with Nick Goulas for a while. And the fact that they did not have TV, that certainly played a part in how small the crowd was. But it's a pretty good card. I would think if they'd had the chance to promote it, it might have done better. But
Well, it would have
that's
done
the way
better
it
than
was.
400 people, but I don't think it would have hit 1,000. I mean, Fargo means something, but Fargo or nobody else means anything against somebody that they don't know. And nobody knew the Russian Stomper. Nobody knew Ed George. Nobody knew Joe Sky. Nobody knew John and Rick Davison. They didn't know Hank James. They didn't know Dr. X. They didn't know too much of Pistol Pez Watley. That card, I'm sure that same card in Nashville would have done different. And I did not know this. Richard Hood saying that Hank James is Bobo Brazil's brother. So that's interesting to know, Rusty.
Oh, absolutely. No, I did not know that either about Hank James being Bobo's brother. So he was a wrestler also, which I guess that's reasonable. It runs in, runs in families for a minute. You know what? I may step away for just a minute, Randy. Excuse me, I'm choking on something, so I'll step away for a second.
Go check with Dr. Beth. All right, Randy Hills talking Memphis Wrestling. We're rocking, we're rolling, we're ready to go. Once again, if you just joined us, we have been talking about Sabu, and we have a graphic for Sabu that he passed away Just a few days ago, on May the 11th, Sabu was born in 1964, passed away in 2025 at 60 years old. He is the nephew of one of the greatest heels in the history of professional wrestling, Ed Pratt, the original Sheik, and we have a picture of the Sheik as well, and one with Sheik with Sabu, and you see a older Sheik and Sabu. The Sheik certainly one of the legends of professional wrestling. As I've said before, the Sheik is, I think, one of the greatest heels of all time. He was born in 1926 and he passed away at age 76 in 2003. He made his professional wrestling debut in 1947. He retired in 97. He's a guy that lived for his gimmick. He's a guy that wouldn't like this show or shows like it. He's a guy that somebody like Dave Meltzer and the kayfabe sheets, he would have killed, absolutely no doubt at all. We're going to do the last card, and we'll go to Knoxville, Tennessee, and I will try to go look and see what card number we're going to. This was a huge card in 1977, a Ron Fuller Southeastern Championship Wrestling on 3889 is the image number on this. This is the Parade of Champions, and the Golden Circle tickets were $10. Tickets 10, 7, 6, 4, and 3. The opening match of the night at Parade of Champions was Rip Smith against Norvell Austin. Then this should have been a hell of a match. Bob Orton Jr., the father of Randy Orton, against Dick Steinborn, then became a Southeastern tag team title. Bill Dundee and Tommy Rich had won the title in Memphis, and they were defending the title against former champions Kurt and Carl Von Steiger. The next match for the Southern Heavyweight title, Jerry Lawler defending against Bob Armstrong. Armstrong won that match and lost it back in a couple of weeks in Memphis. The Southeast Tag Team or Southeast Heavyweight title at stake, the Mongolian Stomper against Robert Fuller, and the next match, the next two matches were world title matches for the NWA Junior Heavyweight Championship. Jimmy Golden's challenging against Nelson Royal, the champion, and the final match for the NWA World Title match, Harley Race, Handsome Harley, against Ron Fuller. And Rusty, what a card this was, the Night of Champions. And we appreciate Travius watching, talking Memphis Wrestling tonight, and everybody else. What do you think, Rusty, of this card in Knoxville, Tennessee?
Boy, was that a loaded card with Harley Race there. You know, I think, was this the same run where Harley wrestled Lawler in Memphis about that time also? I know
Yeah,
he did it several
1977,
times.
absolutely. 100%.
I'm pretty sure I saw that Harley wrestling Lawler in Memphis on that same run. You know, the other thing I noticed that was interesting was the Mongolian Stomper. Oh, I loved the Stomper. And everybody in Memphis really did, even though he didn't come there all that often. You know, most of the time, I believe he was up in Calgary and they just called him the Stomper there. They didn't call him Mongolian Stomper. So I thought his gimmick in Memphis was great. You know, he didn't talk. He had a manager. He had that hair growing out of the back of his head. So I thought the Stomper could have gone further in Memphis.
Yeah, and he had several runs, and he did have sellouts at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. And we have one more card we're going to take a look at, then we'll do our pictures of the day. 3944 is Memphis in 1933 and 1983, May the 9th, 1983. I was at this match and I wouldn't have been there in 1933. Ace of Spades, which was Tommy Gilbert against King Cobra, is the opening match of the night. Then the Bruise Brothers against Carl Fergie and Bobby Fulton, the future Fantastics. After that, the Galaxians, Danny Davis and Ken Wayne with Jim Cornette against the tag team of Steve O and Terry Taylor. Then it was Stagger Lee and the Mad Dog against Bobby Eaton and the Lone Ranger, which was Playboy Frazier. The semifinal match was Jerry Lawler against the Colossus of Death, and it was Andy Kaufman's Colossus of Death, and that was a semifinal of the night. And following up on Steve Kern being injured, Stan Lane called the Mentor, and this is one of the wildest matches that ever happened at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. It was Stan Lane and Jackie Fargo against the Moondogs. This is an interesting card as well. Ticket prices $4, $5, and $6. This is a card in 1983. This was the highest grossing year, not the highest attendance year, the highest grossing year in the history of wrestling at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. So, Rusty, what do you think about this card?
I remember seeing several of the Andy Kaufman versus Jerry Lawler cards, but I've got some questions for you. Particularly, I did not know who Colossus was. I don't remember. Excuse me. I don't remember seeing him. Do you recall who that was, Randy?
I think, but I wouldn't bet your life or my life either on it. I think it was Duke Myers.
Okay, that could be. The other question I had, the Blues Brothers, was that Pork Chop Cash and, oh gosh, I
The
can't
Dream
remember who else it
Machine.
was. Dream Machine. Okay, yeah, Dream Machine was in it for a while. Then he got replaced by somebody else as one of the Blues Brothers, but I can't remember now who that was. And then
Mad Dog.
Okay, yeah, and then
As a matter of fact, Mad Dog and Pork Chop Cash was the originals, and then it ended up with the Dream Machine uh, coming in. Ben, to answer your question, whose idea behind the Moondog gimmick? I think Larry Booker, Larry Latham, Moondog Spot. They debuted in New York, so it might have been a New York deal as that. Ben, I have no idea because I didn't uh, wasn't around during the Nick Goulas era after the split, and I never saw his TV, and I have no idea who's the Russian uh, stomper. Appreciate it.
yeah, neither do I. I don't remember a Russian Stomper. Another
That's an
question I
interesting
had.
card.
Yeah. So Stan Lane and Jackie Fargo. But the Fabulous Ones were already together at that point. So why was Jackie wrestling with Stan instead of Steve Kern?
The Moondogs had injured Kern, and so
Okay.
Stan Lane had to bring his mentor in. At the end of that match, Kern showed back up, and they did some damage, and they ended up annihilating, just killed the Moondogs without a doubt. Just
Yeah,
absolutely.
that makes sense. Yeah. Boy, the Moondogs had some great matches with the Fabulous Ones. That went on for like a year, as I recall. They were bloody, they were violent, they were brawls. Man, they were great.
Absolutely, there is no doubt about it. As we're talking and we're watching and we're enjoying Memphis wrestling, and now we're going to show a interesting picture right now, and it's picture number 3932. 39 number 32 is the picture that we have next on Memphis Wrestling, and this is Michael St. John, and this has to be in the mid 70s, and I think this Prince Tonga, and I talked to Michael today, and he thinks this wrestler ends up being Ming. Ming Prince Tonga, and this is a very good picture, Rusty, of Michael and Prince Tonga Ming.
Yeah, that's right. I remember Prince Tonga in Memphis. He also became known as Haku, I believe, in the WWF. And also, he's much thinner here than he was later on, like 10 years later. But Ming was supposedly, a legitimate tough guy who could beat up anybody on any bar or anything. So the wrestlers kind of left Ming alone. Nobody challenged Ming in the ring or out.
Here's the evil dude that we're going to look at now. Graphic number 3855. One of the classic managers, and I'm assuming that's Nick Goulas or another announcer. I'm not sure. That's Sir Steve Clements. What do you remember of Sir Steve Clements?
Very little. Do you think that's Nick with his back to the camera there?
I think so.
Yeah. That hair is similar to Nick's, although we can't see his face. I don't remember much about Sir Clements. Was he actually in Memphis, or was this somewhere else?
No, this was not a Memphis TV shot, but he did a lot of work, and I think he managed. Didn't he manage Don and Al Green? I'm almost positive. I'm almost positive he did. That's the evil Sir Steve Clemens. In the '70s, managers we had Saul Weingroff, and certainly others back in the day, including Dr. Ken Ramey and Sir Steve Clemens, all certainly people that we had as managers in the Memphis territory.
Oh, yeah. I remember Saul Weingroff and Dr. Ken Ramey, but for some reason, I just couldn't put my finger on Steve Clements. So that's interesting that you put him up there, because that's another thing, I didn't remember. So I've learned something.
3933, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable and Imperial Tojo Yamamoto with his former Southern Tag Team Championship tag team partner. He's often imitated. He's never duplicated. Here's Tojo Yamamoto and the fabulous Jackie Fargo. Rusty.
Boy, one of my favorite teams of all time. I've mentioned before on this program, Tojo Yamamoto, when he started, portrayed an evil Japanese imperial wrestler. My father had been a U.S. Navy pilot in World War II and had fought the Japanese in the Pacific. Oh, and he hated Tojo. He
Yeah.
would just rant and rave about Tojo Yamamoto. And, when he turned good guy, Tojo came out to help a good guy, Jerry Jarrett. My father just couldn't believe it. He was aghast that an imperial Japanese would come to the aid of a good boy American. So Tojo had his gimmick down pat.
Did he ever get, Rusty, to the point where he would actually cheer for Tojo, or were those old wounds just just too much?
I think grudgingly, but they were hard to overcome. I mean, he was still mad at the Japanese up until he died in 1979. So, you know, I don't know that he was still as mad at Tojo at that time. He sort of grudgingly accepted him, I guess, but he didn't like him, even then.
Yeah, I mean, it was real to us, damn it, and that couldn't be more said. And I miss those days, man. I miss those days.
Oh, yeah,
We'll,
absolutely.
we'll go through this one, 3934. Any guesses who this guy is?
I don't know.
I'll give you a little hint. He was the door guy at the Nashville Sports Arena. He was a brother tag team. He is Corsica Joe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Do you
Yeah,
remember
I didn't
Corsica
recognize
Joe?
him. I do remember Corsica Joe, but I just didn't recognize him there. I remember Corsica Joe wrestling in Memphis,
Oh
but I
yeah.
didn't realize this was a picture of him. So had he retired at this point? I assume he had.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
years and years and years. I'll tell you a funny story. It wasn't a bad idea. Nashville, Tennessee was a rough town for wrestling matches. Rough town. A lot of drunk people, a lot of high people, a lot of goofs. So that's why they positioned Corsica Joe, which the fans, just the random straggling fans, the younger fans wouldn't have any idea who the little old man is. So this guy came in with a bunch of cronies, and he was the ringleader, and so he came through there, and Joe stepped in front of the guy, and he had broken English. He said, "You know, come in without ticket." He says, "Push Joe." He said, "You get the F out of my way, you old man." And and he said, Joe said, "You're not going to be here very long." And the guy said, "What are you going to do about it?" And just quick as hell, as I was walking up to the situation, knowing there was a situation, I was walking up, and all of a sudden, just as smooth and quick as ever. And this guy was a big guy. And Corsica Joe drilled him right in the jaw. Just boom, the guy went down, and Joe took his fighting stance and said, "Any of you?" There's probably 4 or 5 more guys. Said, "Any of you son of a bitch want to try old man?" Because it didn't work out too good for that guy, and they all ran out of the building.
Oh, that was great. Joe
Classic
staying in
story. I'll
character to
never
the
forget
very
that as
end.
long as I live.
Absolutely. That was a great one. Joe never dropped character, I guess, after all that time. And that were, interestingly, I remember hearing that Nashville was a rougher town than Memphis, during the wrestling matches.
Oh,
And I never really understood why. Was there any, I guess the crowd was different, but I,
it,
I didn't understand why.
It, I don't really know either, but it was. I mean, even back in the USWA days in '94, '95, it was a rough thing. They had a wild brawl. It didn't have anything to do with the matches, but I sent the whole crew out. The cops were overwhelmed. There was no weapons involved, and I went back in the babyface dressing room, and I said,
Oh.
"Guys, the cops have their hands full. We got to go freaking restore order out here, and here we go." Probably
I was always a little surprised that the Memphis crowd was so relatively calm. In other words, that there weren't more fights coming out of the Memphis crowd. Do you remember, Randy, there was a biker gang that used to come every week to the Coliseum, and they had their specific place where they were seated, and they were called the Iron Horsemen. And they would wear their colors, and they would come every week, at least in the 70s. I remember them being there. And they were on one part of the bleachers near, I think, the edge where the bad guys came out, I think. But there's always like 20 or 30 of them there, but they never gave anybody any trouble. So who knows?
back then, the Memphis police department did not play. If you interfered with the wrestlers, you'd go to jail. Maybe in Nashville, maybe. Well, I have a pretty. I think they probably wasn't enough policemen there uh, in Nashville. Probably wasn't enough, but I thought that was interesting. And one of the greatest tag teams of all times is the next picture we're going to see. Didn't draw a lot of money in Memphis, didn't get a big push in Memphis, but they certainly did other places. These are the Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, Rusty, the Fabulous Freebirds. What do you
Oh man, these are two more of my absolute favorites. I actually met Michael Hayes Oh gosh, it may be 10 years ago now when WrestleMania was in New Orleans the first time, and Michael went to work out at the gym that I was at on Saturday morning of WrestleMania weekend, and I stopped and talked to him for half an hour. He was very nice. He was very accommodating. He answered all the questions I had. I actually told Michael that when I got married, me and the best man were backstage. I say backstage at the back of the church, and we were watching TV at the time. This was a Saturday evening, and TBS Wrestling was on, and the Freebirds came on. This was 1981, and the best man and I almost were late for the service when I got married, watching the fabulous Freebirds, which I told Michael about, and he got a big laugh out of that.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Let's go ahead and put 39, 34, Corsica Joe back up there because Randy West. I don't know if Randy is saying that he was 80 years old when this picture was taken, or I don't know if he's saying that he was 80 years old when he took the fan out. So, Randy, if you could clarify that, was Joe 80 in this picture, or was 80 when he knocked the fan out? That's uh, for for sure. That is. Uh, for sure. That was a funny story. BC liked your
Yep.
story right there, and I'm waiting to see.
Somebody else, our Ben says pre-Buddy Roberts, and that's correct. They didn't get Buddy Roberts until I believe they went to Mid-South. I think Bill
Yes.
Watts put Buddy with Michael and Terry because Michael was a great talker, but he was not that good in the ring. Terry was magnificent in the ring, a big, tough guy, and everybody believed him. So they needed somebody who would take the fall and a good worker who didn't mind getting beat, and that was Buddy Roberts. He did that role in perfection.
Randy West is clarifying Corsica Joe. That story I just told you, and I probably made Randy, I don't know if he was there that night, but Corsica was 80 years old. And yes, Greg, to the answer of the question, and Randy said he was 80 years old when he punched the fan. I don't show this guy very often at all. Picture number 3941. 3941. We didn't see a lot in Memphis, never saw him on Memphis television. On May the 9th, George Goulas had a birthday. He was born in 1949. Who the hell would buy a ticket to see this guy, Rusty?
Oh, good grief. He was pretty tall, although he was relatively thin. He was not, like, excuse me, particularly athletic looking. He didn't look like he worked out regularly. And he was just a goofball. I mean, you could tell it even from the few times he came to Memphis. Finally, I believe Jerry J just refused to let him come to Memphis and told Nick to keep him in the other part of the territory because he was killing the business in Memphis.
He was
So,
killing the business in Nashville, Chattanooga, and Birmingham. And Nick said, "Hey, I'm sending George to Memphis." And Jarrett said, "I don't want him." He says he's killed your territory. He's not going to kill this one. And so that led to the split of there. Very interesting shot, and I like this picture. 3942, 30.
I saw his tights had the Jet set written on them. That
He and
was
Bobby
with
Eaton.
Bobby Eaton was his tag team partner at that. So Bobby was very young at that point too. He might have been still in his teens
Yeah, I
when he
think he
made
was,
that.
and he was the workhorse of the team. Bobby was a natural.
Oh, I believe it. I bet Bobby couldn't stand working with George Goulas.
Oh, I'm telling you, there's no doubt about it. We'll go to the next picture. I love this picture. Jackie Fargo, special referee, May 1989. Waller wins the world title. Jackie Fargo awarded him with the belt, and there's the great picture. And that is a fantastic, fantastic picture there, Rusty.
No, I remember it, although I wasn't there for that one. Who was his opponent, Lawler's opponent in that one? Do
It
you
was
remember?
88
88. Okay.
against
Yeah, I
Kurt
was in New
Hennig.
Orleans. I was in New Orleans at that time and I was a resident, so I was working very hard. So I didn't have much time to watch wrestling then, but I've seen that picture since then. Do you know who Lawler's opponent was in that match?
Where he won the world title?
In Is this where he won the world title from
Yeah.
Nick Bockwinkel?
No, from Kurt Hennig.
Oh, that's right. It was Kurt Hennig. Right. He had wrestled Nick Bockwinkel several times before that, but had not won the title, I don't believe, in that setting. But he did win the AWA title, as you say, in '88 from Kurt Hennig. So now I recall a setting of that.
Hey, I thought I saw in the background in your window, I thought I saw Beth outside. What's she doing?
She just stepped out on the patio. It's such a nice night outside. She's out there sitting at our table, which we have out on the patio. It's just beautiful outside. It's like 72 degrees, very clear. You can see the canal. You can see the Wolf Bay across the canal. So it's very nice outside.
Have you got you a boat, Rusty?
I haven't yet. Beth and some of my kids keep asking me about that. We're still in the talking stages right now of getting a boat. We'll see. As many people have said, your best days with a boat are two: the day you buy it and the day you sell it. So you got to be committed to buying a boat before you do it. I'm not sure we're quite there yet.
But does Beth want one?
I think kind of. What she really wants right now is a pool. We have some space along the side. If you look over my right shoulder, there's some space in the yard over there that would fit a pool very well. So I think we're going to have that done first. So it'll be the pool first, and then maybe the boat after that. So this summer will be the summer for putting the pool in.
Have you started looking?
We have, in fact, we got a permit from the city to build the pool, and we've had a artist rendition. The contractor has come in and looked at it and given us a description of what the pool would look like. So I think we're committed to the pool at this point. No going back on that. So that kind of delayed getting the boat until probably next year.
And I bet you'll get more use out of the pool, I would, than a boat for sure. But on the daggum close to the beach and the ocean, all that thing, I would probably take advantage of
Oh,
that.
Orange Beach is a fishing paradise. It seems like everybody has a fishing boat around here. And I go fishing, but just from the beach or from the canal or whatever. So a boat would be, it would be nice to have
Right.
that, to go out in the bay or to do whatever.
Now you can buy $1 million boats, but just a few $1,000s, you can get a good fishing boat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You get as they call it here, you can get a bay boat or you can get a Gulf boat. The Gulf boats are the big ones that can tolerate being out in the Gulf of Mexico with all the big waves and storms. The bay boats are more for protected waters, like either the rivers or Wolf Bay itself. So I would probably go with a bay boat. I'm not sure I'm up to, getting a big boat that I have to take out into rough seas at this point.
Now Adam has a suggestion to get a pool and be the pool friend and get a yacht friend for the boat. In other words, bum off the
Yes.
friend with the yacht. That's a good idea.
I'm working on that. I've got a couple of guys at the gym that I go to work out with who have like fishing charters, and I'm working on that, to get them to, let's tag along sometimes. Not quite there yet, but we're trying.
Yeah, you're a friendly social guy, and I'm sure you can, and an interesting guy. Hey, you'll win them over like you won me over. Tell them, put that damn podcast plug up there and put Rusty's caption up there as well. Because, folks, the Blues Doctor, this is Dr. William Rusty Robinson. He lives now in Orange Beach, Alabama. He does the Blues Doctor podcast. That's on YouTube. So just check out and search for the Blues Doctor podcast. There is another description of Rusty with another caption, if you would show that too. And this describes who Rusty is. If I didn't do as good enough job in introducing him, Rusty grew up on watching Memphis Wrestling, currently hosts a Blue Doctor recommend podcast on YouTube. You need to check that out, the Blues Doctor podcast. Now, Rusty, do you think I have a little bit of a promoter still left in my old ass?
I was going to say, I never live up to your introductions when you do them, Randy. So I appreciate it.
I learned from Lance Russell.
Yeah, exactly. You can tell. I'm a beginner at the podcast stuff, really. Although it's a lot of fun, I enjoy doing it. We're going to talk this week on my podcast a lot about the blues. This week in 1911 was when Robert Johnson was born. Robert Johnson was one of the pioneer blues artists who influenced so many rock and roll guys. Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, Robert Plant, Dwayne Allman, Chuck Berry, many others. So I go into depth about some of the history of Robert Johnson and, what he accomplished and what he left for us.
Very, very interesting. And we're going to do one more picture. I think there's one left. If you go ahead, I've lost my numbers of where we are, and if we have one more to go, I think it's 39:43. Do you know who this is?
Oh gosh, it's like right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite come up with it.
You'll be embarrassed when I tell you who that is.
I will.
You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jackie and Roughhouse Fargo.
Wow.
This goes way back.
Yeah, that's before my time, even. Golly.
Unbelievable.
I really would not have recognized Roughhouse in that picture.
Great picture. And that ends the card section and the picture section of this show. And we got away from looking at 92 or 93, got away from that. There was interesting stuff for sure on that. And I am looking at the notes where I can find the videos. This is Lawler shooting on and doing his state of the wrestling industry. This is 92, and this is 9 minutes and 33 seconds. Lawler shooting on the wrestling business, and we'll watch that right now. Dr. Robinson, Randy Hills on Talking Memphis Wrestling.
You got a big match, a lot of other things going on.
I'll tell you, this is one of the biggest cards that's been signed in a long, long time, and, I guess it's appropriate. Following the Mid-South Fair
There's
that's
Michael in the
down,
background.
for 10 days here. And, of course, we've been having USWA Championship Wrestling out at the fair. It's going to be there again tonight. We've got the finals tonight at the Mid-South Fair of the big tournament that's been going on. And also, again, tomorrow night. I'm going to be out there tonight. I think Jeff Jarrett, Robert Fuller, a lot of people out there tonight, and tomorrow night also. So I want to invite everybody to come out there and see that. Before I talk about this match that I've got coming up Monday night, which is, of course, a big one, I want to mention a couple of other things that you said that we got going on here. Can you not hear me over there? Is there a problem?
All right.
That's Red upstairs. I know. We're blaming Red. Now we've got a little sound now.
There you go.
All right. I just want to mention a couple of things you said. I got some other things going. Last week I mentioned this big benefit softball game that's coming up in Nashville tomorrow, and we've had a ton of calls here at the station in Memphis about it. I just wanted to mention there is a benefit softball game. This is a big softball challenge that's going to be taking place tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock at Greer Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, this is all to benefit the City of Hope, which is an AIDS and Cancer Research Center there in Nashville. And let me just tell you some of the people that I'm going to be playing softball with up there. I'll just mention the names, and you might want to make the trip to Nashville to see this game. It is going to be exciting. Here are some of the ball players that are going to be involved. Clint Black, Vince Gill, the Kentucky Headhunters, George Jones, Lisa Hartman's going to be there, T. Graham Brown, Paul Overstreet,
Jim Varney, you know, hey Vern.
Hey, Vern.
Yeah, he's going to be there. Jerry Lawler, I don't know who that guy is. Listen to this. Garth Brooks. Yeah. Travis Tritt, Mark Chestnut, Mark Colley, Tricia Yearwood, Patty Loveless, Shenandoah, Conway Twitty, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. There's going to be some Hall of Fame baseball players there playing too. Catfish Hunter, Don Sutton, Rick Rhoden, Phil Necro, and Gaylord Perry, and Reba McEntire singing the national anthem. It's going to be the biggest thing going, yeah. So anyway, now a lot of people asked about tickets. You can call Nashville Ticketmaster. The tickets are $10. And it's going to be tomorrow at 4 o'clock at Greer Stadium in Nashville if you want to come up there. And after the game is over, there's going to be a big concert. It's kind of a jam concert featuring everybody. So it should be good, okay?
Yes, indeed. Quite an afternoon. That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow afternoon. And then next Sunday, Lawler's Army and one of the new kids are going to be up there playing. We're going to have a big softball game. I was thinking maybe I bring Garth Brooks and Clint Black along with me, too. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to be up in Humboldt, Tennessee next Sunday. Not tomorrow, but the following Sunday. We're going to be up in Humboldt, Tennessee, and I'll tell you more about that to benefit the DARE program, the big drug rehab program.
All right, talk about this match Monday night.
Real quick, okay, I just want to mention the reason that I am excited about this match is because, you know, I guess a few years back, what took place in the wrestling industry or in the wrestling profession or business, as you know, all sports really, the bottom line is they're basically businesses. Everybody's in the sport to make money. And I guess before the advent of cable TV, what happened, the fans in this area, you know, they only saw the wrestling that was in their each individual's area. Because, you know, if somebody was in wrestling up in New York or out in California, you didn't see those TV shows, so you didn't know about the other wrestlers. But then along came cable TV, and several wrestling organizations got on cable, and then all of a sudden their shows are seen all over the world, all over the country. You know, like the WWF, of course, they're on all over the country, and then the NWA comes along, and then they're on all over the country on cable. And, of course, you know, USWA has been on ESPN, and we were seen all over the country, too. But what it did, it gave the fans an opportunity to see other wrestling organizations. Now, there was some good things and some bad things about this. The good things was that fans got to see a lot of other wrestlers. But one of the bad things came about in this was the fact that all of the wrestling organizations all of a sudden started this fierce competition with each other. Used to, the competition was just between the wrestlers, and that's the way it always should have been. But then all of a sudden the wrestling organizations, the companies, started competing with each other. They wanted to all get all the best wrestlers, and they wanted to all have all the talent, and they didn't really want to cooperate with each other. You know, like if you wrestled for the WWF, they didn't want you wrestling for the NWA. Or if you wrestled for the NWA, they didn't want you wrestling for the USWA. And that, I think, was the loss of that's where the fans came the losers, because then, you know, we used to claim to be world heavyweight champions, and just, you know, that was one of the things about this unified title that I was always proud of. And I've said this before, and a lot of people think, well, you're just harping on that, but if you really look at it, it's the truth. I mean, guys claim to be world champions, but in actuality, if the company that they work for won't let them wrestle anybody that's not in their company, then they're not truly considered a world champion. I mean, you know, if Hulk Hogan is calling himself the world champion, but if he can't come down here and wrestle me, or if he can't go and wrestle somebody in the NWA, then why not? I mean, he's really just the WWF champion. The same goes for Lex Luger in the NWA. If he can't wrestle anybody outside that organization, then he is just the company champion. Now, I'm not knocking these guys as individuals, but it's just a company policy that I wish someday would change. And when I won the AWA World Heavyweight Championship, I issued a challenge to all the other so-called champions. And the only one, as I said, the only company, the organization that had the guts, because it took a lot of guts to put your championship at stake, was the World Class organization with Kerry Von Erich. And Kerry Von Erich, the world-class world champion, wrestled me, the AWA world champion, in Chicago in December of 1988. And fortunately, I was able to come out on top in that match. And that's where the Unified Heavyweight Championship of the World came about. And this is the only championship still that I'm able to go out of the USWA. You know, I just went last month up in Philadelphia and wrestled for an independent organization up there that wrestles all throughout the Northeast. Wrestled the Honky Tonk Man in Philadelphia, and you know, was able to come out victorious in that match. And it's like, this, as I said, is the only title where it can be defended outside the organization, and I'm real proud of that fact. And the reason that I'm excited about this match that's coming up Monday night is the fact that, you know, here's Coco Wares, who has just been in the WWF. And a lot of people come to me, I mean, especially the young kids, because they don't always understand the implications and things like that. They come to me and they say, hey, why don't you go to the WWF, or why don't you go to the NWA? And a lot of times they say, you know, why don't you go to the big time? And because I guess that these guys are on cable, or, you know, every time you see it, it looks like a sold-out crowd or something like that, a lot of people think that that is the big time. But I just want to tell you this. I've been to New York City. I've been to New York to wrestle. I wrestled the Road Warriors right in the Meadowlands Arena there in front of a sold-out crowd. And I've been on the David Letterman show. And I just want to tell you my experience in New York. When I left my hotel to go to the subway to get on the David Letterman show, and this is the honest to God's truth, I stepped over, out of a nice ritzy hotel, I had to step over people that were sleeping on the street. One guy had a baseball bat that he was using for a pillow that was sleeping right on the street. Now, if you people that think New York is the big time, a lot of you have obviously never been there, because I can tell you that I wouldn't live in New York City if they gave me a penthouse in Trump Plaza. I love Memphis, Tennessee, and this is my home, and we have got the greatest wrestling fans in the world right here in Memphis, Tennessee, bar none. I wrestled in Philadelphia just a few weeks ago, and there was one of the best matches that I've ever seen going on, and some of the fans were sitting there yelling, boring, boring. To me, these people are not wrestling fans like we have down here. These are real wrestling fans. These are people that know what wrestling's all about, and that's why I stay in the USWA, because this is an organization that still, their primary number one concern is they sell wrestling. They sell wrestling tickets. That's the only way they make their money. They're, you know, they're not like the WWF. They sell dolls and toys and games and cereal and everything you can think of, and that's the way they make their money. So they're not going to push wrestling. This organization is concerned with one thing, and that's selling wrestling tickets to wrestling fans, and that's why they give them wrestling. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm excited about Monday night, because it's a chance to go up against Coco Ware, who is just coming from the WWF. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Coco, because Coco is a fine wrestler. Coco is a great athlete. But I want to have a chance to show people that Memphis, Tennessee, and the USWA is big time, and it's as big time as I want to get. And I'm going to show everybody here, and I'm going to show Coco Ware that we got some winners down here.
Very good, the King. Well, it's nice to do an interview where you don't have anything to disagree with. And I agree with everything that the King has just said. There he goes as he greets the fans.
That was an interesting interview because he did a fundraiser to start off the thing. And then he, like me, used to get hot when somebody say to me, why didn't you ever go to the big time? Well, I did Memphis, Tennessee, and brother, that was the big time to me. No doubt about it. 50 years later, we're still talking about it today. And Lawler wrapped it up by trying to sell tickets to his match. That was a brilliant 7-minute interview that I thought was just tremendous. And I saw that on YouTube. I wasn't in the territory at the time. That was very interesting, Rusty.
Oh yeah, I've seen that interview since then. I did not see it live at the time. And you mentioned that this was 7 minutes of Lawler shooting, and that couldn't be more true. You know, Lawler loved Memphis, still does. You know, I don't think he will ever leave Memphis, and didn't, you know, for a home. You know, he moved back from Hendersonville. He had been in Memphis, has been in Memphis ever since. So clearly, this is the town he loved. Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a very interesting thing. Folks, we're just going to do one more interview today. We're going to give you a break and give Rusty a break and give Adam a break to get out of here earlier. But we have a 3-minute, 40-second interview. I thought I didn't preview this, and this could be great. This could be out there because the person is Terry Funk, and it's 1992, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So again, I didn't preview it, and I might regret that as we watch Terry Funk
I was robbed. I was robbed from the World's Championship by Jerry Lawler in Fargo. Because you must understand that ignorance clings together. Can't you understand that? You people in Memphis, of anybody, should be able to understand that, because you are nothing but a bunch of ignorant pigs, just like what was in the ring with me. I couldn't believe it when Lawler came to the ring with what? Was he thinking about the World's Championship, or was he thinking about the night a little bit later on? Did you see that ugly broad that he brought to the ringside? I'm talking about that one with that sterile cleavage, the one with the splinter legs, the one that looked like a dog. Where did he find her? At the Miss Tennessee contest, I'll bet. That's the kind of people that enter the Tennessee contest. But what happened? Fargo came in right behind her, and if that isn't a prime example for a cardiac arrest, I've never seen any. So you bring that old, decrepit, old piece of junk and garbage and put him into the ring with a fine athlete like myself, and what does he do? He steals the World's Championship belt from me. And what does that do to professional wrestling? It puts it down the tubes. It puts it in the basement. It puts it in the cellar. It puts it in the sewer. And there's nothing worse than the Memphis sewer. And that's the Mid-South Coliseum, is the Memphis sewer. But I'm coming back to the sewer to battle with the rats and the slime and the scum. And the rats and the slime and the scum are nothing more than 4 Tennessee perverts. They're going to be going in the ring against the Texas Connection, the Texas Outlaws. That's right, the Funker himself. You simple-minded people know me. I'm the best in the world. And I'm going to have Pritchard on my side, and I'm going to have Emery, and I'm going to have that devious moron. What is his name? That devious moron, that Japanese goof. How could I be better off than having a Japanese goof in my corner? We're going to be in a cage match. That's exactly right. And we are going to take care of each and every one of them. Now let me tell you something. All of you jerks, all of you idiots, all of you fools, all of you fat slobs, all of you pigs, come on down to the Coliseum, and you can oink for your group, but it's not going to go do any good. Oink for them. Oink, oink. Grunt like a pig, because you look like a pig.
Classic interview, very fun. I noticed, and one of the audience members mentioned that Terry Funk was holding the microphone. He was holding this microphone right here. How about that? I was a little nervous. I'm thinking I should have previewed that, and it was fine. But man, he could come up with the craziest stuff. That was classic, Rusty. Classic.
He was brilliant all the time. You know, he would come to Memphis every once in a while, like every other year or so, something like that. But it was like he never left. You know, he would come on and he was brilliant. He picked up the feud with Lawler, you know, right off the bat. So that feud felt like it was going on for like 40 years, right up to when Terry died, which is just a few years ago. You know, we lived in Amarillo for a while during Hurricane Katrina, and we met Terry out there. In fact, Terry's daughter was an RN who worked at the cancer center with me. So we met Terry and talked to him several times. He and his wife, honestly, were as nice as two people could be. You know, you wouldn't even realize how crazy he was, you know, in promos like that when you would talk to him out of character. So I've always loved Terry Funk, and I was very sad when he died. he actually really never got over the death of his wife.
Right.
She died.
Vicky.
Yeah, Vicky died, a couple of years before he did. And I don't think he ever really recovered from that.
No, he did not. He did not. And that happens. They married when they were kids. And that happens a lot.
Oh, yeah. They were married for 50 years. Oh, I'll tell you another good Terry Funk story. So Terry Funk went to college at what was then West Texas State University, is now West Texas A&M. And at the time, Terry played football and baseball. And if you talk to the old timers from WT West Texas back then, like in the 2000s when I was there, they would say the best looking shortstop they ever saw at WT was Terry Funk. So he really was a great athlete all the way around. He got asked several teams in the NFL if he would come play football, and he declined it. So, there were not many better athletes around than he was.
No doubt about it. Hey, we had a good show today, and we missed Pat and Michael and Chris, but we had Rusty, and man, I love having Rusty. He's the new find, just happened to catch us, and we brought him on, and he comes in regular. The Blues Doctor Recommends podcast on YouTube. If it doesn't make it by midnight, I would check tomorrow and keep checking, because this is will expand your thought process into medicine, into music, talk of the great stories about New Orleans. We've talked about voodoo. We talk about all kinds of stuff. I say we, Rusty does, because it's just it's become one of my favorite podcasts, the Blues Doctor podcast. To expand your horizons like I have, and I learned so much about, because I normally ask him on this show different. I'll ask him last week basically because it's just thinking. I mean, he made his living as a doctor for many, many years, and I said, now that you're retired, he said, what would you do if you walked up on a disaster or emergency, and you basically, without thinking about it 1 second, you basically said, go to work.
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't hesitate. Even though I haven't done it in a couple of years, you would never, turn somebody down or turn away from somebody who needed help. And I think most physicians are like that also. I was going to mention one current event that I'm talking about on the podcast this week is President Trump's stop order on federal funding for Harvard. It's been very controversial that he stopped all federal money going to Harvard. And I'm going to try to explain the ins and outs of that and why it's important, not only to Harvard, but all the other universities in the country. And and give some opinion on what the options that Harvard has at this point regarding that.
Yeah, I saw that in the news today, and that is a very interesting. So we started with Sabu today. We had some great pictures, great cards. Final thoughts on tonight's show, Rusty?
Great show. Great show. I particularly enjoyed, believe it or not, the very last thing. That was the Terry Funk promo. If I had to rank my Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling, it would be, in no particular order, Terry Funk, Jerry Lawler, Ric Flair, and Randy Savage. All of whom had at least some Memphis connection. 3 of the 4 had lots of Memphis connections, but Terry was right up there with him. He was arguably number 1 of mine of all-time professional wrestlers.
Great feedback from our audience. I appreciate all the great words. I appreciate Rusty. I appreciate Adam Dunn for producing, missing Michael and Pat and Chris. Hopefully they'll be back next week. Oh, Rusty, good night, everybody, for Talking Memphis Wrestling. Thanks, Rusty. Thanks, everybody.